Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, friends and listeners. We are back here at Life List with another episode. I am with both Alvaro Jaramillo and Molly Brown. I am George Armistead. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, doing pretty well.
Yeah, doing well.
What's happening in West Virginia, Molly?
Well, I think about this every time we start the podcast because I know you're going to ask me that, and I've always got the same thing to say. If I'm home, I'm pretty much in a routine. But yeah, it's starting to feel like fall here. I think it'll be a couple weeks before this episode comes out, but just starting to feel fall migration ramping up, cooler mornings. It's been really nice.
Bring on those cold fronts. Bring on the cold fronts. Yeah,
it's coming, which is really exciting. I have spent a few hours today trying to figure out how to use iNaturalist to have the equivalent of a patch on iNaturalist. And I think I finally have it figured out. I've been wanting to kind of see all of my observations from the new home front and put them all in one place. So that's been my morning.
Nice.
Whoa. Hey, if you're like becoming an iNaturalist pro, is there a way to actually, like, let's say I'm going to Chile, let's say, and I want to make kind of like a illustrated checklist of the butterflies. Ooh. Can I do that out of iNaturalist? Do you know?
Well, I can attempt to answer this. I'm definitely not an iNaturalist pro, but I'm also realizing how spoiled we are on a lot of the functionalities of eBird for things like that, and Birds of the World, where you can say, look at a family or something, because you can go to iNaturalist on the website. You can sort it by Chile. You can break it down into major groups. Like I think there's an insects category.
Oh, wow.
And you can look at it from that way. Yeah. I don't know if it gets more specific. I don't think that there's even like a butterflies and moths. So you can break it down a little bit. I've been wanting to just find a running list. I want to know how many tree species are in West Virginia. And I've been trying to figure that out. And I don't think you can really break it down in iNaturalist by more than plants. So I've been looking for something similar and haven't found the perfect solution. One thing, iNaturalist has a lot of forums and things where people are discussing that. It's just not as easy to find the information.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I guess one of the things is so taxonomic that iNaturalist, trees, right? A palm tree is a palm tree to us, but it's really a completely different kind of plant. So, but they should have almost like a non-taxonomic, like everybody knows these are trees and everybody knows these are butterflies, even though within butterflies, there's moths that are related to them that aren't, we don't think of as butterflies and so forth. So, but it'd be kind of cool if you could just output, almost like I'm going to New Guinea, show me the slime molds that I might be able to find there. Like almost like if they pick the top photos, almost like eBird does. And then, you could have a little illustrated checklist.
A little species pack.
That'd be amazing.
It would be. I did do something similar when I was in Arizona a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to see the herbs, but I went by reptiles and I went by amphibians. So you can see the species for each of those. And I did that I think I did it for Pima County to actually break it down. So depending on how broad you're wanting to look at something, that may or may not be easy. But once you do that, you can filter by species. You can look at like all the observations, or you can look at the species themselves. And it kind of has the photo and that sort of thing. You just can't go more specific than that. I've been trying to figure out. I use Seek a lot as well when I'm out just like quickly identifying things, which is really nice and connected to iNaturalist. It's kind of like Merlin, where it's not perfect for a lot of things, and it might give you a species, and I back it up to a genus level or something for the report because I'm not confident in that. But I feel again so spoiled on how you can look at taxonomic breakdowns and look at how different birds are related through, especially Birds of the World, and kind of seeing how like one genus compares to another or something. And I'm struggling to find the equivalent in other forms of life.
Yeah. We're birds birds are cool. People know it, and we've invested a lot of time in making birds more accessible than other things. But it kind of always trickles down, right? It's like the bird people sometimes are, doing some things that because there's more of them, maybe, right? That eventually will trickle down to the slime mold folks.
Maybe the shell people.
The shell people. Yeah. It's like, be quiet over there, you bird people.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I've been up to.
I just downloaded Seek as you guys were talking. I've been using iNaturalist, and I've heard people mention Seek, and I was like, I'm going to get that right now. So I just downloaded it, and I'll start checking that out. I'm loving iNaturalist for little critters and plants around the yard, especially just trying to figure that kind of thing out. I have a lot to learn still about using iNet, but I do love it, and be cool to learn some more about it.
It's really fun. I have a great tip for Seek that I made a mistake of. Right when you download the app, connect it to your iNaturalist account. And that way, every time you identify it, it will push over. But if you don't do that first, you can't go back and add it in. So I have, 100 observations that I had put in Seek before I connected it, and I can't move them over to iNaturalist now.
Yeah, that is a good tip.
Hey, assuming you kind of go on this same train of thought of some apps and things that actually pertain to something that just happened recently here in Half Moon Bay, is that there's an app called, a site called Happy Whale. And Happy Whale, you can upload photographs of whales. In particular, they're, the flukes, the tails of humpback whales, and it'll uses an algorithm to figure out the actual individual and maps it and tracks it. So you can actually, if you see a whale, you can track your own whale forever, right?
Whoa.
And we had so Happy Whale is great. It's been, organized, put together by this friend of mine, Ted Cheeseman. And people are using it all over the world. And a whale just showed up dead.
Right?
Fran. Yeah, exactly. In our beach here. And Fran was, I guess, the second most reported whale on Happy Whale for years. Like, since they know who Fran's mom was, who Fran's kids are, and they know all of this history moving back and forth to Mexico, but it appears to have been hit by a ship, and that's how Fran died. But
I forget. Do they know how old? Do they know how old Fran was? Forget.
I want to say the number 2004 might be the first time she was seen. Yeah. So, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But on Happy Whale, people have been tracking this whale. It's one of the most seen, like in Monterey Bay and so forth. And it's just so outstandingly sad that one of the whales that many people have encountered and actually detected and logged into this ends up dead because of a ship.
Yeah.
So there's sort of this little, a lot of the whale folks are like, buy less stuff, everybody, buy less stuff. We have all of these unintended consequences.
Shipping. Yeah.
From shipping.
Yeah.
I also want to say that one of the things that the good news story is that this is becoming more of a problem because we have more whales. That's part of it. There are more whales now than there used to be 20 years ago by quite a large margin.
Right. That's a good problem to have, I suppose.
Yeah. It's like the population's going up. But a Happy Whale, if you're even if you're not living near a place where you get to see whales, just check it out. Go in on the site and just look at some of the tracked whales, individuals, what they've, and it's mainly a computer that's figuring out who's who. I think human eyes look at some of this stuff every so often, but it's an algorithm that's figuring out which whale's which one. So it's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Al, one of the questions I had for you, sort of similar thing, I've been meaning to ask you this, is great white sharks. Is there a similar location? You hear about these incredible migrations of sharks and white sharks in particular. Do you know is there a particular site you can go to and see information on that, or is it more published papers?
That's a good question. There used to be this site where a lot of marine, I think, what do they call it? Like the Marine Predators Project or the Marine, and it's a site that had a lot of big creatures in the ocean that are being tracked, sharks and even a turtle. There was also seaturtle.org that was keeping some of that. So yeah, there is something. Some of these things are there with maps of where these creatures have moved from one place to the other. But I don't have it offhand.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably one of our listeners. Hopefully, we'll chime in with that. That'd be an interesting thing to share.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing something a little different today, guys. And before we do that, I wanted to share a couple things here. We're going to get to some listener questions soon, which will be fun. We've never really done that for a full episode. I noticed it going kind of viral here in Philly right now is Love Park, which you might have heard of downtown, right by City Hall, Dilworth Plaza area. But it's right next to City Hall, downtown, Love Park. They've got these fountains. And just yesterday, there was a person walking their emotional support alligator around at Love Park there.
I saw that.
In the sprinkler. Yeah. And apparently it's a very friendly alligator, and which is nice. But I have to say, if I saw somebody walking an alligator around downtown, I'm not sure how comfortable I'd be with that. Like, I don't care. It's sort of like some of these dogs. People say, "Oh, he's friendly," and I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know that I trust you. And with an alligator, I think I'd be a little, I don't know, suspicious, perhaps.
What's next?
This is news to me. Yeah, Alvaro, how did you hear about this? Was this a news story that that went beyond Philly?
I think I click on really weird stuff because
I believe that story. That's very believable. Yeah,
I get really weird things that come up on Facebook or what have you. And it was on one of the socials, I think, unless it was one of the news items that I follow. News.
I do wonder where you draw the line with these emotional support animals. Like someone's like, "This is my emotional support grizzly bear," and I've got at home. I have my emotional support king cobra.
Right.
It's like, at what point do we start to question these things?
I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree, and there'll be like gray areas. But I don't. I think we should start with domesticated animals. Like, so if you want to have an emotional support camel, I'm like, okay, that's okay. But
it's a lot of maintenance for
great white shark. No,
yeah. I don't trust those camels either. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. But if you think about it, like something that's domesticated has been through a process of sort of like getting to know humans over some time, right? So that seems like it's a little better, even though, of course, more people get killed by dogs in the U.S. than alligators, but still,
it's true.
Let's not let the data get in the way.
That's right.
Well, this reminds me of a conversation we've been having in the house on jumping spiders, because we talk about how they always seem so friendly and curious.
I love jumping spiders. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good emotional support animal.
They're so cute.
Hang out. They are.
Love those guys.
I thought you were talking about jumping over spiders. You should jump over the spider. Okay, we're jumping spiders. Then
I have to say, if jumping spiders were much bigger, I'm not sure that they would be as cute. Like if they were sort of like tarantula sized, I might be less inclined to like them as much as I do. As it is, they're sort of little tiny and furry guys, and I think they're just like, I find them and I'm just like, oh my God, so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like those, what is it, tardigrades, those little...
Yes, the, what are they called, water bears?
Water bears, and they look kind of cute, but then if they were the size of a seal, you'd be like, oh my God, get me out of here.
Yeah. Well, the other quick aside here, development, was that my wife, Kristen, she's like, hey, your Hillstar Nature is going pretty good, but small business, a friend of mine her husband works in like advising people starting new businesses, new small businesses, and might be good for you to just chat with them at some point. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. And then I said, well, what are their names? And she then kind of gave me a look like, you're not going to believe me, and you're not going to want to maybe meet with them after I tell you. And the couple's name is Jedi and Madonna. That's their name. And I was like, at first I was like, there's no way I'm going to meet with a couple named Jedi and Madonna. And then I was like, but wait a minute. Maybe that's exactly who I should be meeting with,
Yeah. Jedi. I mean,
it's apparently short for something else, but everybody calls him Jedi.
Eduardo.
That's it, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to hear what kind of advice they have for
I
you.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hillstar Nature might be paving a new course here.
That's right. Jedi birding. Yeah.
It'll be like, about the Force and stuff. And you're like, come on, the Force doesn't exist. And then suddenly you levitate or something. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Geez, I better listen.
A friend of mine was like, meet with them, you shall. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I want to hear Madonna, what she has to say about Hillstar Nature.
Yeah. I feel like it's this is one of these Italian design, German engineering kind of thing. You get the best of both worlds. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. They're like the yin and yang of opinions. Madonna's trying to get you to go this way, and Jedi makes you want to, no, you can't do that. That's not logical. And Madonna's like, but it'd be so cool.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know how it goes, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to happen.
You should take them out birding. I think that's a good way to vet them.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that, or beers, or both. Anyway, I'll keep you posted on the meeting with Jedi and Madonna. I am looking forward to that. Hopefully they're not listeners, but we'll see. Maybe we'll convert them. Anyway, we were going to do some listener questions today, and yeah, quite a few have come in, which is nice, including a couple, right, that Molly refer to our upcoming event in Colombia, the Life List event in Colombia, in Manizales, for the first 5-6 days. Then we move to Cali for the Colombia Bird Fair in Cali. It's really going to be a good time, and some amazing birds, and some amazing Colombian birders too, and plenty of good food and drink as well. A couple questions we had. One was about if you need to be fluent in Spanish, and the answer is you do not have to be fluent in Spanish. The first leg of the trip in Manizales there is pretty much going to be all in English, although there'll be plenty of opportunities to speak Spanish if that is desired. And the second leg at the Colombia Bird Fair itself, there will be translation services of some ilk or another. In the past, they've been like headphones, sort of like UN style, headphones where they have a translation, or it's translated in English on a screen. So I expect there's enough of an international crowd there. Expect that that'll be the way to go. And that was a question from Duke Tufty, and the other question from Bart Hutchinson.
Can I just say something about Spanish? The one thing you want to know in Colombia is how to spell the country name.
Yes.
You don't want to spell it with a U, like Colombia. It's Colombia with an O. Nothing offends the Colombians more than being misspelled. So that would be my Spanish suggestion.
In fact, my colleague Roger, and I think Eliana as well, both, they have T-shirts that say it's Colombia, not Colombia, like with an O, not with a U. So it comes up a lot. Unfortunately, one of the biggest problems is that spell check corrects it to the U spelling. So that often is part of the problem, is that we've got Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia, Maryland, and the company,
British
right?
Columbia.
British Columbia, all with U's. And so like spell check corrects it with the U. And then I think people start to wonder, oh, did I spell that wrong initially or what? But that is not helping matters at all.
No. Wars have started for lesser things.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, so that was one question. The other question about Colombia with 2 O's and no U's is what airport we fly into. And simplest thing, if you come, would be to fly into Pereira, which is in the Coffee Triangle there. And then we transport to Cali. So flying into Pereira and out of Cali would be the way that works, which is pretty straightforward. There's international flights from both cities. So from Miami in particular. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty short, under 4 hours typically. So those are a couple of ones we wanted to knock off right at the top.
I'll add one more thing while we're on that trip to kind of talk about what Columbia Bird Fair it's like, because I think for some U.S. listeners, if you've heard of Bird Fair, you might first think of the UK Bird Fair. That's essentially a giant trade show and isn't as heavy on the field trips and that kind of thing, and is really focused on just lots and lots of vendors for different birding companies and organizations around the world. However, the Columbia Bird Fair runs sort of like a giant birding festival that would be in the U.S. So when we're there, we will have some talks and lectures, I think, in the afternoons and things that we will attend. But we'll also just be out birding for a lot of it and just extending the birding tour and going to different locations like you would for a birding festival too. So if you're curious how much Spanish or English you're going to hear, a lot of it will be just your typical out in the field birding and that kind of thing as well. I've done talks for Columbia Bird Fair virtually in the past few years, and they've been in English. So I know that there are enough English-speaking attendees that those talks are included as well. So I think that'll be good.
Yeah. And some of the guest speakers that they've got lined up, some big names, will be delivering their talks in English as well. So
yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as questions that we've gotten, so I've kind of combed through the Life List email, and we did put a new website up a couple weeks ago. So now we've got some feedback directly on the website, and it is really cool because we haven't really asked for questions that much from listeners, but we get a lot of input and it's fun. And when I was going through, I saw, well, let's start with recommendations on birding in Philly and in that area. And George, I believe that was directed toward you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, here we go.
Yeah. 2 hours later.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, so there's this magic bush in the park right behind. There's this little tent. Bob's the guy that lives in the tent.
We're not like Chicago.
To the right. It's really good.
Yeah. There is a place I could tell you where. Yeah.
See?
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the best birds I ever found was the first black-headed gull for Philly was in the parking lot of a gentleman's club, and explaining my how I ended up there. And I was like, well, it's right next to a trash transfer station, and there's a little grass lawn outside, and people are like, yeah, George, okay, sure. And I was like, it was like 6 a.m. They're like, yeah, you probably spent the night there. And I was like, that is unfair a characterization. That is,
yeah, you're just recycling stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I'm just a recycler, that's all I was doing there. Yeah. So,
I believe you.
So yeah, trash transfer stations, people. That's where the good stuff happens. No, they're probably the biggest, most obvious place is actually surprisingly unknown to a lot of people, especially even in and around Philadelphia. Is the Hines National Wildlife Refuge? It's number 2 eBird hotspot in terms of species diversity in the state of Pennsylvania. It's one of these places. There's always birds there, so it's a great refuge. It's the country's first urban wildlife refuge. Goes back to the 70s. It used to be, I think it was Texaco oil land. Feds bought it up, and it's a great site. And there's if you go on eBird, you'll see lots of information about that. One of the other great spots is Bartram's Garden, in West Philadelphia, Southwest Philadelphia. That is a great spot as well. Kind of another spot where there's always birds. Some places you go, it's kind of seasonal. You can go in and there may not be much. But those two places, there's pretty much always some birds, especially Hinds, but Bartram's too. Those are two really good spots right in the city that are great. And if you're in the area, Peace Valley Park is I think the number 3 eBird hotspot in the state in terms of species diversity. Number 1 is Presque Isle State Park out in extreme northwest Philly on Lake Erie. And that's a phenomenal place as well. Harder to reach, a little more tucked away, but also phenomenal. But Peace Valley is tremendous. An incredible list of vagrants have turned up over the years, and it's a place that always holds some birds. You go there any time of year, you're going to see something. And obviously, migration seasons are probably most exciting, and that's probably true of all the places we're talking about here. But really, all seasons good at those places. And even right near, just outside the city, barely, there's a place called Dixon Meadow. Short little loop, easy walking, nice boardwalk. Again, pretty much all times a year, something good to see there. So anyway, there's a few spots. We could get into, as Alvaro was fearful, I could go on at some length on this, but I'll keep it to those few hot spots to start.
Doesn't the Hinds Refuge have a different name too, though? That's kind of confusing for people from away.
Yeah, in fact, many locals still refer to it by its old name, Tinicum, which is the township, Tinicum Township. There it used to be I think it was Tinicum National Wildlife Refuge. They changed the name to the Hinds National Wildlife Refuge at Tinicum. And parts of that are actually in Delaware County, it splits between Philadelphia and Delaware County, Pennsylvania. It's named after a senator who passed away in a helicopter crash. It was actually Teresa Hinds Carey's first husband. And he was a very well-liked senator from the area until he passed. I think it was right around 1990. So yeah, it's sort of like the Forsyth Refuge in New Jersey, which everyone still calls Brig or Brigantine. The Hinds Refuge is still often referred to as Tinicum.
He knows. That was it's almost like if you had practiced that.
Oh yeah, it is a source of confusion.
He's holding a stopwatch as he talks, and he's like, done.
It's like the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Well, Alvaro, we got the same question about California as a whole, and then specifically closer to you as well.
Well, it's weird. I was asked to write that ABA book on California, and I did so, but I don't actually travel around much in the state because I'm kind of a real, if I'm around here at home, I kind of like to not spend time in the car, which is exactly the opposite of when a birder visits here and they want to know where's the best place for white-headed woodpecker and stuff. Well, I can tell you where I've seen them in the past, but I don't kind of, I'm not on the pulse of things in California, and it's huge, right? I mean, this is why so many birders here that are kind of in the more competitive listing stuff, they do county lists because some of the counties are bigger than states, practically. So that's a really hard question in a sense, but I would say that there are some places that are absolutely, or situations that are absolutely kind of vital. California, the ocean, so the coast, and also Monterey Bay or Half Moon Bay pelagics or San Diego pelagics. Although, there's some cool species down in San Diego, but the real numbers and the masses that can show up sometimes happens up here. And also there are things that you sort of don't think about, like this. The Central Valley is surrounded by these oaks, like an oak savanna that is unique to California. And there's a lot of cool birds that are sort of there. Some of them are not species yet, sort of the not considered species like the white-breasted nuthatch, but things like oak titmouse and the yellow-billed magpie, things like that are sort of in that zone. And I think that's kind of a neat place to visit. and add the Central Valley with tricolored blackbirds, and then to me the mountains, any mountain or conifer forest in California, sort of visit to see some of the other birds. So there's so much to see. I'm just kind of like really kind of going quickly, but here I think if you're ever in the Bay Area during shorebird migration and can catch some of the big masses of shorebirds in San Francisco Bay, that's pretty wild. A place where in high tide some of the shorebirds get together. That is pretty wild to see. And then the fact that in the Bay Area there's just so much to see within an hour's drive. So if you could land in San Jose or San Francisco and visit just a bunch of great places in pretty, an hour and a half, and see a lot of stuff. But I'm not sure I really got at the heart of the question, but there's just almost too much to talk about here in California.
Well, I would say when I visited you and Brian Sullivan a couple years ago in winter there, I really loved that Elkhorn Slough area. And that should have good concentrations of shorebirds in fall, but it seems like one of those spots that has good concentrations of birds all year long. Time. And I also loved the Central Valley birding as well. Just high volume birds, high volume blackbirds, high volume pipits and horned larks, and just a lot of birds.
Winter,
geese,
just thousands of ducks. It's pretty amazing that exists pretty close to here. So I go every year to just go see the geese, and it's like there's no lifer to be had or anything for me. It's just like, look at this, it's
spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, those are a couple of good ones. Now, Molly, notice that West Virginia has been woefully underrepresented in this question.
I did notice that.
Couldn't help but notice, right?
I couldn't help but notice. That's right. Well, it's hard to talk about West Virginia. I'm going to answer anyway, by the way.
There you go.
You don't have to ask me for me to talk about it. But it is hard to follow up with the spectacle because West Virginia doesn't have something that compares to that. But West Virginia is such a fantastic place to go to see breeding birds. And I truly am not just saying that because I'm from here. It's just a really incredible place to be in June and July, especially if you're in the East and you're in driving distance. If I can drive 2 hours right now and it'll be 20 degrees colder than it is here, you can really get away from the heat and that kind of thing too. And it's kind of fun to fill a void where birding can be slow in other areas. But just first off, seeing the height of summer here, just the amount of biomass and just life around is so cool. And you can also really do a pretty good job of cleaning up your eastern breeding species within a couple hours drive, kind of starting in more of the lowland Appalachia and getting things that are kind of bleeding in from the Midwest on the side, or some of those species that are eastern specialties like Henslow sparrow too, and a few of those other birds that are fun to get. And then just getting up into the mountains. If I were to actually recommend places for people to go, Canaan Valley in kind of the heart of the mountains here in West Virginia is phenomenal, and you get the whole range of breeding warblers that you would get anywhere in Appalachia, including some of the highest elevation, like Blackburnians and magnolias and Nashville warblers, those types of things, veeries and Swainson's thrush and winter wren and all of that. It's just a lot of fun and it's really beautiful. And we also have the newest national park in the United States is here in West Virginia at New River Gorge.
Oh, that's
which
right.
Was a national river before and has been expanded into a national park. And
beautiful area.
It's gorgeous. Yes. Yeah. It is just if you want to go birding and feel like you're on a retreat, I would say come to West Virginia and enjoy that. Yeah. And you won't have the crowds and the chaos of some of the other national parks that I've been to.
I don't remember the name of that trail at New River where you walk out and you end up on sort of a promontory where you've got a view of the bridge and the gorge.
Oh, yeah. The Endless Wall Trail.
Yeah, that's a nice walk. People should do that.
Yeah, it's great. Just filled with Swainson's warblers, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Really nice.
Yeah. So that's my spiel for West Virginia. It's pretty fun in the winter, too, especially I don't know if you're into winter sports or skiing or that kind of thing. There's some pretty cool towns that have that. And then you have a lot be skiing with golden eagles and rough-legged hawks. And
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Evening grosbeaks and crossbills and that kind of thing, too. So that's a pretty fun way to do that in the East, I think.
Yeah.
So there's my question that wasn't asked about West Virginia.
Nice. Well answered, Molly. Well answered. Yes. Nice. Well, Al, how about you? Of the questions we've seen here, which one jumped out at you?
Well, one that did jump out was actually from a while ago. Daniel Levin, who's at ABC, he's a bird conservationist, scientist, and so forth. He asked about, as a parent, how have I juggled birding and international birding in particular with raising kids, and also there's sort of a subtext there to sort of how to make your kids into birders.
Yeah, this is a common question. Comes up a lot on tours and in groups. I feel like people are always curious about this.
So I'm a complete failure at it, actually. And my kids are like, yeah, my dad's a bird watcher. Yeah, they, and other people ask them, like, what do you mean? Well, he watches birds, and yeah. And there's no detail. There's no, he runs these tours or he does this. He's written up, if I had to ask my kids if I've written a book, they'd probably be like, probably not, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad, but we already know that they don't listen to this podcast. So,
right.
But here's the thing though, that I do think is key. It's like, you don't want to have, as a parent, the idea that you're going to make these kids into birders. It's almost never going to turn out quite like you think, and it's not going to happen at your timeline. So you take kids out, you go and you do, I don't know, activities out the beach, you're hiking, you're, doing these things outdoors, and then you're there with your binoculars, and maybe you'll say, hey, look, when something really cool happens, here's a bald eagle or something, or, for us here in the West, a bald eagle's kind of cool still, so we point them out, not like you guys that ignore them out there.
I think it's kind of adorable, but
yeah. And like I would take my daughter to see the geese in the winter and all this kind of stuff, and then every so often she'd be like, remember when we used to go see all those geese and stuff, and yeah, I remember. But my thought is that the idea is to get them interested in the outdoors and in nature in general, just sort of that being outside is part of their life. And that has actually been very successful. Like, I think my kids like to be outside. They like to be either playing soccer outside, walking outside, going to the beach, rather than they're not necessarily interested in birds. But my thought is that probably when they're in their 30s, some of that will come back and go, oh, hey, it's that whole nature thing was kind of cool. And, that's where I think it's, I would say. Now, the thing with me juggling international travel, all that's a very complicated question, because it's been my job, just like, if I'd been a, encyclopedia salesman back in the 50s and had to go door to door, town to town, people understood it was your job and you had to be away, and you made kind of the best of it in terms of trying to be there when important things happened, or, what have you, for sort of the family life. But it's less than ideal, let's put it that way, to be away when you've got family. There's no, fantastic way to sort of do that other than to be really, as engaged as much as you can when you are home. And I often would say to some of the parents, like, I might not be 9 to 5 going to work, but when I'm at home, I can actually drive them, do all this. I have really very, flexible schedule. We can, head off to the hockey tournament or whatever. So there was an element of, there is a benefit to it, but it's not easy to juggle, and it's not easy to sort of create a birder from a child unless they already have it in them,
Some nature and some nurture involved.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the conversation that we have over and over again on the podcast about what does it mean to actually be a birder, and that maybe your kids aren't listing birds or aren't going out of their way to see birds, but that doesn't mean that they don't appreciate them and see cool experiences and get excited about it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I was just thinking about, I help with young birders walks sometimes, and you kind of always start out, or I do, started out thinking about how we're going to go out, do our walk, get our checklist, see how many species we see. And then you get totally off on some, I don't know, waxwing that's very obvious in a tree and ignoring all the other birds that are around. Or then you find a insect that's around, or something else too, or even, I don't know, a domestic mallard that the kids are just as excited about. And you realize that that's okay. And you don't have to do a, quote unquote bird walk or traditional checklist.
They're not going to be as excited about the Henslow's sparrow, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't care about the herd onlys as much.
We used to count banana slugs on the trail. I'd be like, what's the record for banana slugs? It'd be like 11. All right, see if we can break the record,
Yeah.
do things like that. And that was fun, right?
You gamify it a little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the things about birding is that we have fun with the lists and the counting and the totals and the eBird, but you have to have you're already kind of invested into it by the time you get into that. Like, there's another element that it's just earlier on where it's just like, wow things, like, look at
enjoyment.
This thing, it's red, goldfinch is yellow. Look at that thing,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But George, I think this question applies to you since we've talked about your dad. Now, he utterly failed at making you a squirrel expert. But you seem to like the birds okay.
Yeah. I do like the birds, They're all right. They're all right in my book. Yeah. It's funny. I had a friend the other day, very successful businessman. I feel like it's a very general way of explaining what he does. But
very successful business.
Yeah,
it sounds
he
like
works in telecom, developed his own business. He's done very, very well. And he asked me, like, we've been friends for 2 decades. And he asked me recently, he's like, I gotta ask you, man, like, you've been doing this a long time. Just like one animal the whole time. Like, what else are you gonna learn? I was like, I love you, man, but man, you really don't get it. It's like
one animal.
Yeah.
Does he think it's like a chicken? Like you have like a chicken in your backyard, and you sort of like, that's what you study or something?
You just sit there and look at it.
Yeah. And just like, wow, look at this chicken. Man, that chicken is amazing. Yeah. No, I don't really like, and I was like actually struggling to understand, like, to know how to answer, but I was like, basically I told him, I was like, gives you so much, birding gives you so much. The people, the birds, the diversity of birds, where you see them, you travel the world, they give you, it just rewards you again and again and again. It humbles you. It makes, it makes you proud of what you see sometimes. Like, it just gives you so much. But we've been through that before. But yeah, I would say, my dad actually did try for several years. He was like, I'm taking George birding. We're going to go out birding. He's going to love this, and we started when I was like 6 or something. And I really didn't take for it. I like have early memories. Like, apparently he took me and my sisters when we were young to see those 2 gyrfalcons that had set up shop in Lancaster County here in Pennsylvania at a quarry. I have no memory of it. It's probably like the first birding experience I ever had. I saw 2 gyrfalcons. I have no memory, zero memory of it. One of them was a white one, It's like,
wow.
like I feel like that's how, it's a really terrible experience to not remember, and then I do remember, like, we went birding and he was like, we found a Eurasian widgeon in Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge, and that was, like, back then that was a pretty rare bird. Now they're really, not so rare as they used to be. And I kind of remember seeing that, but, like, he kind of gave up after a while. And by the time I was like 9 or 10, I just started, like, looking at books, and I just was, I enjoyed, like you say, you sort of taught an appreciation of the outdoors. He does love squirrels. I was like, yeah, squirrels are cool. They're cute. They're fat. They're furry. There's a lot to like there. And so, like, I got it. I just, like, he built an appreciation. I think I had some of that already. And those two things combined. But I see with a lot of friends, sort of like you're saying, I think if you teach an appreciation, you can do that. You can instill it as sort of a value that being outside is a good thing for your mental health and your physical health, and that it's just good. And from there, maybe that's how people can, you provide them a platform from which they can become birders. That'd be what I'd suggest, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting, deal, because, you kind of think of, like, the Tiger Woods phenomena with his dad, like basically grooming him to become this golfer, and it worked. But you probably don't hear about the 100 other dads that do the same that failed, like that their kid just hated golf and whatever. And there's a point where you can push too much on a kid, and it needs to be kind of natural. And I found more that some of the kids who are really, really keen locally, that over the years, some of them are already in college and stuff, but you meet them and the parents kind of bring them out, and they're like, okay, yeah, so-and-so really loves birds. And yeah, we want them to go out with people who know what they're doing. And the parents often are not birders, and they're kind of lost. Like, I don't know how this works. And they're really into it. And so having an infrastructure in all places to sort of take in younger birders to sort of, make them understand and have fun with it is really important. And it's not necessarily the parent that does it. It's sort of, there's sometimes this intrinsic thing with some people that just want to go out and watch birds from a young age.
Yeah, I feel like like a parent has to kind of put them in the right position to, but then they'll need some help either from the kid themselves or some other mentor or friend that comes into their lives and helps push them in that direction. Some luck involved.
Yeah. I've also seen, like, the parents that sometimes actually, once they're there, they kind of go along because they don't want to just leave the kid with randos. Weird birders. And they go along, a few times, and before you know it, they got binoculars and they're like, so where can we see this other bird here in the book, and it's interesting how that happens too, like,
yes, exposure. For sure. Absolutely. Definitely see a lot of parents getting it from their kids. That probably is as common.
Yeah. It's a magical thing, like why somebody wants to do certain thing. And if you do find that person who's really keen on it, it's cool if there's somebody out there that can help them out, because it is not a thing you can do really truly by yourself. You can, but to really sort of get beyond what you can learn organically, you need to sort of bird with other people.
Yeah, for sure.
But Molly, you grew up as sort of a lone birder, right? You weren't you, like, not without a sort of formal community at that point? I don't know.
Yep, I was pretty isolated. So I did grow up on a farm, a pretty big farm with several hundred acres to run on. So I was around a lot of people who really loved the outdoors, and had just a general appreciation of nature. But the birding, I just really enjoyed on my own. I guess the same way I'm still talking about wanting to iNet everything on my property. I was just interested in everything. And the birds were included in that. And just really liked it. And as much information as I had on it, I took in. And it wasn't until college until I really realized that there were a lot of other people who were doing that too. So that was me.
Yeah. Neat.
I failed to get my parents more interested. Although though my mom will talk about indigo buntings that she sees. She loves them. She'll ask about, I don't know, how to find Baltimore Orioles, and I'll tell her they're in the tops of the sycamores over her house and things like that. But there was one thing. We had a fairly rare state bird, a cattle egret, that spent a week on our farm with our cattle.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first time, and that was when I was still in college. And enough that there were, I don't know, a dozen local birders over a couple of days that came out to see it. And that's when my parents were like, oh, there are more of you, and you're not the only one going out to find that. So they got to meet a lot of the local birders, and that was pretty cool. So they have a decent concept of what birding is like at this point. But I've also tried to take my mom out on a just like bird walk through the patch with me during spring migration, and she was very unimpressed and overwhelmed by the tiny birds in the top of the trees that she couldn't see very well.
Yeah, sometimes ducks are can be your best friend. I feel like getting people started on birds, because ducks, they're fancy looking and they just sit there, and there's males and females, and there's different species flock together, look really, can be tough trying to do songbirds sometimes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's actually a 2-acre pond on our farm too that has wood ducks and green heron and mallards that all nest there. And there are wood duck boxes that the neighbors put out. So that kind of stuff they dearly love.
Nice.
Hey, I know we had a bunch of other questions. I know one that I think we're going to have to leave for next time. Those one word bird names. I think we could probably do another. But travel, right? Didn't we have a question about traveling?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's a good, not the cheap, but how to learn how to travel in a sense.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. So this was a sort of multi-part question from Scott, and it's, he said, there's so many other places we want to go. But as fairly unseasoned travelers, it'd be great to learn travel trips on how people make it work. Are all these people independently wealthy? Do they have a knack for planning and doing it inexpensively? What are the best tips you'd offer for maximizing the trips you take around the globe to see the most birds while doing it affordably? And he mentioned having read Noah Stricker's great book, Birding Beyond Borders, and how that really inspired him to want to get out and develop learning how to get out there, how to plan trips, and maybe where to begin. And I think this would be a good one for each of you guys. But yeah, Al, you want to start off on that one?
So one of the ways we get around is that we're actually tour leaders, right? So we're essentially working to get there. So we're not spending money, but we know what things cost. And that's something. And also we didn't start out this way. I'm sure. I mean, we've all come in on it from a different way, but I started just going places with, there were old books on travel that were before sort of the internet, that like the South American Handbook or, Lonely Planet guides, all those things that had all these tips on how to find good spots to, stay at. And I would then superimpose my birding needs on those regular travel, books. And I found that there was a lot of, interaction there because, if you wanted to go to the high Andes in northern Chile, other people had done that not for birds, but because they'd wanted to see the volcanoes or whatever. So I think there is probably a, starting from sort of the top end TripAdvisor type situations to forums that are much more, I wouldn't say underground, but a little less talked about on just travel. Those are great places to learn. And, you can go and bird from a bus, right? You can go and take a bus to a certain place and then stay multiple days in a specific lodge. And they don't have to be expensive. And you think, well, is it risky? Is it what is it? But people have been doing this kind of backpacker travel forever. And there are a lot of ways to do things on the cheap. Obviously, if you go on a tour with us, it's much more expensive, but we put this infrastructure and, vehicles and drivers and all this other stuff. So I would suggest if you want to do things that are more cheaper and really interesting as life experiences, particularly if you're a younger person, I would say like almost the backpacker lifestyle of birding is how a lot of people started back in the day in international travel, and that others are non-birders are actually doing these things and figuring them out and know what the safe bus routes are and know what the dangers are in places. And often there's not that much danger. Like we have to get away from this idea that foreign places are all dangerous.
Right.
There are dangers, just like there are in Philly. As a person who lives there, what not to do.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly the same thing you were going to do internationally. You need to learn what not to do. And that is out there. It's available. And once you know what not to do, your risk level goes down by quite a bit. Do you need to learn Spanish if you're going to, Ecuador by yourself? Helps a lot. You can now, work through even with your cell phone, doing some translation and all that kind of stuff. It's in a way, there's more resources now than ever. They're just more spread out. It used to be you could just buy a couple of books and you'd get a lot of cool info. Now it's a little harder to sort of coalesce it all into something that's useful. I think that's kind of the problem of the internet in general, right? We have all the information available, but we don't have it distilled to us in a way that it's like you find exactly what you need.
Right. Sort of drinking from the fire hose kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say that give that a shot as sort of like, don't think you have to go on an organized tour or that you have to go to high-end places and find out what country is really sort of, nobody goes to Uruguay to go birding, partially because it doesn't have endemic birds. It's beautiful, amazingly safe, has great food. You can get everywhere on a bus. Start with Uruguay. And then learn from there. Go to Argentina, which is a little bit, that's bigger cities, more things to sort of watch out for in Buenos Aires. But once you're away from the cities in Argentina, it's like, biggest risk is get chased by a llama or something in the mountains.
Get confused by one of the canisteros. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think, that would be my thought.
Yeah. Molly, what about you?
Well, Alvaro, I mean, that was great information. I've done travel I pay for and travel that I haven't paid for. So I'd say I have a little bit of experience both ways. And I did spend a few years in college that, looking back, I think I was a bit naive, where I just felt like I could take off anywhere and just travel and take it in, which overall I think was really great for me. I could talk a lot more about being a college age blonde girl doing solo international travel and just how that worked. I had to learn, as far as the safety goes, a little bit of how you don't have to be overly friendly with everyone you talk to, and you can kind of stick to yourself. And it's a little different than how I was raised. But that made my travel go a lot more smoothly once I got used to that. But yeah, I wrote down just a couple ideas for this. First off, you might want to consider splurging for an organized tour if you're the type of person that doesn't enjoy the challenge of putting together your itinerary. Because if you're on a set itinerary for a tour, you don't have to think about, where am I going to go today? What bird is this? What should I order for food? You have someone advising you every step of the way, and you can really just follow along and enjoy and not worry about all of those details or traffic patterns or what to do if there's, an issue with your room or any of that. So if you're the type of person that enjoys having that lift off of your conscious while you're traveling, then maybe it is worth spending more to go on a organized tour. But if you do like the challenge, or if you're looking for a more budget option, a few tips that I thought about, one were to minimize the number of locations that you go. And Alvaro, you kind of mentioned this. Transportation ends up being one of the most expensive parts of travel a lot of the times, that I've found. Food can typically be pretty cheap. A lot of places have a really wide range of accommodations, including hostels, which I've had fantastic luck with all over the world. But if you can find somewhere, like you said, where you can take, get a ride, or maybe they include transportation from the airport or something, and you're not having to rent your own car or provide for your own transportation the whole time, then that can really help save money. And there are lots and lots of lodges that have specialization in birding all over the world too, where you can have different excursions and whatnot, and that's included. And I found that to be pretty economical. Second, it tried to find a small group to travel with. Usually there's a sweet spot that I found of 3 or 4 people, where if you get a few people who are going with you and splitting the cost of a room and that kind of thing, that can really help with the prices too and the cost of a trip. It's really just making sure that you have people that you're not going to get tired of spending however many days straight with, and that kind of are interested in the same birding as you. And the last thing that I thought about is, if you were to pick one area to spend more money on, it would be to hire a local guide and when you're there, and still have some guided activities when you're out, because it can be frustrating. I can say this from personal experience. If you're out birding and you just see something and you think, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever what that bird is. I don't even know where to begin in the book. So I've done a few things where I've hired guides even for just a few half days, and then been on my own in the afternoons or something like that, and just a little bit of guidance and just learning more about the location that you're in and more of the cultural aspect, and all of that just makes the travel a lot more meaningful to me. But Alvaro gave a couple recommendations on places to go. I did a solo trip to Iceland a few years ago and really loved it. And that's typically not a very cheap country to visit. But I just kind of camped around, and Iceland was a really easy place to do that and find a bed and breakfast that kind of fit any price range. I took my own bedding, and that saved me a lot of money, actually. It was really easy to just go up to a small bed and breakfast and say, I have all this. I'm going to be in and out. I'm just birding. And then I also bought groceries and didn't eat out much. And that ended up being a fairly affordable trip. I was also really impressed when I went to Thailand, how many places were within a few hours of Bangkok and had that whole transportation all inclusive. You could get into national parks or do some different excursions. And I know that there are places like that all over the world, but that was one where I thought, wow, you could do this really cheaply and see a lot of really cool birds.
And Thailand's probably one of the, I would say it's probably the country to go in Asia in terms of there's a lot to see. It's easier to go there than the Philippines, in terms of the bird, kind of the birding. And it's not sort of it's sort of a not so good Asian birding country. It might actually be the best.
Oh, it's fantastic
country.
Yeah. I kind of think of it as like the Costa Rica of Asia, Thailand. It's sort of like it's set up for birders. And yeah, I always say, if you're looking to dip your toe in Asian birding, Thailand is a great place to start.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I did.
I two things came up. If you don't mind, George, before I forget, one of them is that I was involved in putting together some of these birding trails in Colombia, northern, Colombian birding trail, and sort of the one that you guys are sort of visiting in Manizales and various other places. There are birding trail projects that are being organized throughout the world, but in Colombia they have multiple where you can go and look online and see sort of suggested places to go and a route where you don't have to do the whole route, but you can at least know kind of what you're getting into and what birds might be expected there. So they facilitated a certain amount of the planning for you, and it's sort of available. And the other thing is maybe a little tougher thing to sort of communicate. But when you travel sometimes and you're traveling on your own or with a small group of friends, or and you're doing things by yourself, things are going to go wrong, right? And not to say that it's going to be dangerous or bad or whatever. There's some things going to happen. It's going to mess up your plans or whatever.
Right. Weather, a bridge is out, a flat tire, car problem. These things happen here and while you're traveling. Yeah.
Right. And flexibility is key. And also sometimes when things go wrong, the most amazing things happen. Like, I don't know, you end up being in a place you didn't even know existed, and you meet great people, you see great birds, whatever it might be. But also to that end too, if you're very particular about some aspect of your life, particular, I don't want to say that in a negative way, but diet is one issue. It might be from health reasons. It might be chose not to eat meat, you're vegan or what have you. You might not be able to actually do that when you're traveling, so keep in mind how flexible you are on some of these
destination
choices in your life or health reasons or whatever.
Yeah, some destinations are easier than others for whatever the thing might be. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right. I don't think you can go to Japan and be a vegan. You can eat amazing foods. You can avoid eating beef, for example, but Japanese restaurants or places make a certain dish or two, and they are not set up to change that dish. Like you eat what is there that day, and it's the way it is. Nobody sort of says, "Oh, could you just put the mayo on the side?" That does not happen in Japan.
Right.
And you just have to know that. And obviously in Tokyo, you can get anything. But if you're birding out in the middle of nowhere in Hokkaido, you have to be willing to sort of go with the local flow. And that may or may not work for you. And that's an important thing to know, right? Beforehand. So you don't get yourself in a situation. It's like, can't they just give me rice and beans? It's like, well, no. In some places they can't. You can live that way in other spots, right? And that'd be a very cheap and easy way to eat. But I do think you have to be knowledgeable on some of the things that may not be available and how flexible you are. I have friends who are vegetarian except when they travel, just because they've chosen a vegetarian lifestyle mainly for the sort of environmental reason. But when they travel, they're like, okay, I'm just out here. I want to experience, and I want to make this easier for me and the people who are hosting me. So that's just some people, right? I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. It's good advice. I think, some flexibility with travel is certainly, as a guide, you hope that the people you're traveling with have some flexibility and understanding of that, and most people do. But if you're solo traveling, it's equally important, no matter what. You just kind of have to be ready to roll with the punches to some degree because you're in a foreign land, literally, and things are not the same. And that's part of the reason you are traveling, is to see things and experience things that are different. So it's good to expect that.
I look forward to one day going out east and being served tomato pie, because I've heard of this foreign food and that it's not nearly as good as one with cheese in it, but I would like to make this decision by myself.
Yeah, well, if you're traveling east with me, Alvaro, that is not a decision you'll ever have to make, because I'm not going any place that's serving us tomato pie. No, that's not entirely true. There's many places here you can get it, and if you are so inclined, you may. Now, guys, we are running over our time, our normal allotted time here, which is not an emergency, I would say, but I did want to ask one last question and get your quick takes. Jeff Kenny here in Pennsylvania asks, is there anything on earth more perfect than the American woodcock? That was his question to us. Molly, I'll start with you.
Oh, no. All right. Here's my answer. I like woodcocks. I've said on the podcast, we wanted a property that had woodcock and water thrush. But water thrush is my first choice on the property.
It's a good and a fine choice. It is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Alvaro, what do you think? Is there anything more perfect?
Well, from a like shorebird enthusiast and so forth. This is a shorebird that's not a shorebird. It's a cool bird. It's got everything going. So there almost is nothing that is as perfect as an American woodcock, except maybe a mommy woodcock, just because it's more, it's somewhere else. So you can go woodcock chasing all around the world. Or, there's something called a Bukidnon woodcock. That sounds pretty cool. That might be nearing perfection there in Philippines.
Yeah. And so just so that we're clear, a mommy woodcock, a mommy is an island. It's not a mom woodcock, but
okay.
Yeah. Just for those that may not be familiar,
right.
AMAMI, a mommy in Japan, Okinawa.
Yeah, Okinawa down, closer to Taiwan. But I think that'd be cool to see some of these. What are they? Woodcocks? What's the plural?
Yeah, that's a
woodscock.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you're not the authority, though. Not much.
No.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I think though. There's a lot of good woodcock material out there, and I think that that there's like is it like a Nickelback song or something that they've got them like bouncing to, like when they're doing their little bobbing thing, which is pretty cool. And it's definitely the coolest thing that has ever been associated with Nickelback, if that is Nickelback. But
not one of the strongest Canadian bands.
Oh, you say not one?
Not.
Yeah. Okay, good. No. Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. The other thing is, I think, sort of like American bittern, a bird. Certain things are measured in the number of nicknames or colloquial names that they have, and the American woodcock has got some great ones. From the timberdoodle, being probably the most widespread and appreciated name, but I also like Labrador Twister is another one named for their crazy display flight. And it is definitely one of my father's favorite birds. One of my favorite birds are Cape Charles Christmas bird count, which my father started and compiled for over 50 years, is routinely gets the national high count of American woodcock. We have sometimes had over 600 in a single day on that,
Whoa.
Which is almost unthinkable, right? We've had hundreds several times. Routinely, we have dozens there. So short answer to your question, Jeff, no, there is nothing more perfect than the American woodcock. I think we can all agree on that to some degree or another. But with that, I think we should wrap up here. Molly, is there anything you want the good folks to know before we sign off here?
Ooh, yeah. We're recording this on the co-op's second birthday. So
wow.
Some birding co-op shout outs. Yeah, check out the Colombia trip that Life List is doing and the co-op's a part of, and our Costa Rica tour that's going in the Osa Peninsula in December.
Yeah, that looks like an awesome trip. Yeah. Al, what's up, man? What do you got?
Again, lots of pelagics happening. I have 3 in the next 4 days. So
yeah, you're in the heart of pelagic season.
I'm in the heart of it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens in the next few days in terms of what we see. But there's a few left. And then I'm off to Chile in October. So that's going to be fun.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. One of the questions we got was from Josh, the birding co-op's Josh Koval, about your favorite Chilean birds. We will save that as well as the one-word bird names for a future podcast. With that, folks, thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon. Alvaro, Molly, have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.